Growing your online sales has gotten increasingly difficult and expensive. It's gotten to the point where most digital native brands are looking to physical stores to grow their business. To maximize our e-commerce marketing, we need to first identify which metrics we should be measuring. And it turns out that many of the traditional metrics are not the best indicators of how well your business is doing. Meet Valentin Radu, founder of Omniconvert and a specialist in increasing customer lifetime value. According to Valentin, e-commerce sellers spend too much time chasing new customers and not enough time nurturing their existing customers. Just by changing their focus, brands can massively increase their sales and profits online. That's just one of many insights that he's discovered through his work at Omniconvert. In this episode of A Seat at the Table, Valentin will discuss the importance of being able to extract more value from existing customers, identifying your best customers, and prioritizing how you allocate your resources, and a new methodology for customer value optimization. Being able to find people with solid e-commerce experience is easier said than done. The fast growth of the channel has left many companies scrambling to find skilled marketing leadership. Fortunately, the team at AsiaNet Consultants is able to leverage their massive network and find those often overlooked executives who have exactly the right experience and a solid track record. To find out more about AsiaNet Consultants, check out their website at asianetconsultants.com. I put a link to it in the show notes for this episode. Meanwhile, let's sit down with Valentin and find out how we can make our e-commerce channels a lot more profitable. Valentin, I'm really happy to have you here on A Seat at the Table. I think that what you're talking about is actually top of mind for many of the people who listen to this podcast. And just based on conversations that I've had with people literally in the last couple of days, being able to get better performance on e-commerce is really important right now. I mean, I know there's been a big return to physical stores, but certainly e-commerce is a very, very big part of most people's sort of a retail or distribution, part of their omni-channel or multi-channel strategy. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Jane, and I'm also excited to making this happen, and I'm willing to share a lot of insights that I got in the last 17 years about customer lifetime value and customer retention.
Yeah, I think that's really excellent. Now, just to start off, you mentioned that there's 7 dominant numbers in e-commerce. Tell us a little bit about what they are and why we should pay attention to those.
Yeah, for sure. These numbers are the ones that if you adjust, you are changing the destiny, let's say, or the results of any e-commerce. Unfortunately, most of the marketers and most of the e-commerce leaders are disregarding some of those. They are all coming from an, let's say, old perspective about how an e-commerce can grow, which takes into account only the traffic, the conversion rate, and the average order value. And those are, of course, 3 dominant numbers. If you increase dramatically the traffic and the conversion rate and the average order value, all of them are affecting the revenue. But what about how much you are paying to acquire those customers? And that means you need to also take into account the customer acquisition cost, which is the 4th dominant numbers. But of course, you should be also taking into account not only the first conversion, but you should be looking at the next transactions of those customers. And that means you need to also track things like the purchase frequency and the customer lifetime value. So basically, most of the companies are focusing on the traffic, average order value, and the conversion rate. Some of them are focusing on the gross margin, which is another dominant numbers. And only a fraction of those are focusing on purchase frequency and the customer lifetime value. Now, you need all of those dominant numbers to model the business, right? Because nowadays in e-commerce, what's happening is that the old model where you were paying Facebook and Google ads and whatever to generate enough revenue to be profitable, this is not working so well anymore. And that means companies are waking up to this new reality that the other numbers are also important.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because you're right. People do tend to look at certain numbers. Certain things have just become the core things that we all focus on. And you're right. We also need to look beyond that and be able to prioritize which of those numbers that we can measure actually should be given a greater weight than others.
Yeah. And of course, according to the maturity of the business, at the beginning, let's say you're a startup in e-commerce, of course, you can't do anything about it without the traffic, right? And after that, you end up looking at the conversion rate, at the average order value. But as the company is becoming more and more mature, they should be focusing on lifetime value as well. And most e-commerce companies think that they have product market fit, which is wrong. I mean, you can't pour more money into acquisition, into traffic, unless you are making sure that the customers are happy, they are coming back to buy again, the products are there. And that means you should be verifying things like customer lifetime value. And if things are not okay there, then you shouldn't be doing this. For instance, I have an example to share with you, a quite large company that I've worked with back in 2015. They were selling dresses, and they thought that their problem is the marketing. However, after we have been doing the customer research, we identified that most of their loyal customers stopped buying again after buying a particular brand. And that brand was their own private label brand, which was doing very well in terms of the sales. But the problem is that people were not buying anymore. So they were actually churning customers by selling a product which they thought that is quite good because they made a lot of money with their own private label. However, they were sourcing that product from China and the quality wasn't there. And that brought disappointment to their existing customers so much that they haven't even bothered to return. So those products, which because they were not that expensive. So basically, sometimes you need to focus on traffic, conversion rate, and AOV or gross margin. And sometimes you should be focusing on lifetime value and at the repeat purchase. So that means you should be making a diagnosis, an audit, as we call it. We have something which is called the e-commerce growth formula that evaluates what is the missing component, what should be the right number to focus on according to where is this company at this particular moment.
Right. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly this e-commerce growth formula is? How does it work? What are the key components?
Yeah. So basically, you take the last 12 months dominant numbers, what is the status, and then you look at what kind of lifetime value you generate, what is the profit margin, and what is the growth rate according to the past. Looking at that, you can realize if that problem is below the benchmark according to their industry in terms of the purchase frequency or in terms of the lifetime value, that means they should be focusing on that. Now, if the company is doing better, I mean, is doing very well over there, and you model the growth of those dominant numbers, let's say you had, if I would be increasing all the 15, all these 7 dominant numbers by 15%, what is going to happen with the bottom line? Because most of the companies right now are focusing on profitability. They are not focusing on growth revenue anymore, right? So mainly if you are after revenue, that's great. Pour more money into ads, fix the customer acquisition cost, and scale the company. But if you are after profitability and having a healthy, sustainable business, then you should be taking into account the other dominant numbers as well. So with this kind of formula, you can understand what dominant number has the biggest impact in the bottom line of the business according to where the company is at that particular moment.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you have to know where you are on the journey and then what numbers are the ones that you need to be focusing on so that you can, in a sense, push and pull the right levers to guide you further along. Now, you talk about how to leverage RFM segments. Tell us a little bit about what RFM segments are, and then, of course, how we can leverage them.
Yeah. So RFM stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. Instead of looking at all the customers the same, you use this type of segmentation method to give scores to each of the customers according to how recently they've bought, how frequently they've bought, and what's their monetary value, how much business they generate already. With this type of scores, let's say you have scores from 1 to 5, right? 5 being the best and 1 being the worst. A score of 5 in recency means that the customer just bought in the last 30 days, because we all know that the most recently we've made something, the higher the chances are that we are going to do that something again. So in the human behavior, recency is the most important indicator that you are going to repeat that thing. Let's look at another aspect. Let's say if you are a smoker and you want to give up, if you haven't smoked in 10 years, chances are that you are going to smoke again are very, very low. But if you said, I'm quitting smoking, and you ask that person, when have you quit? So basically last week. So then the chances that you are going to repeat that behavior are higher. And it's the same with the purchase behavior. Recency is the strongest indicator that the customers will buy again. Then we have the frequency, which again, if you've made some habit multiple times, the chances that you are going to repeat that habit are higher as well. And the last but not the least is the monetary value. So with this type of interpretation, you will end up having customers with a high recency, they've bought in the last 30 days, but with a low frequency, they've just bought once. And also with the high monetary value, let's say they've bought more than $500 where your AOV is 100. So basically with this type of interpretation, those customers are high potential newly acquired customers. We call them the new passions, right? But what happens if you have a low recency, but high frequency and high monetary value? Those are the ex-lovers, right? They haven't bought in the last 2 years, let's say, but they used to be loyal customers. And that's why we call them the ex-lovers. And now the best of the customers will have the highest recency, the highest frequency, and the highest monetary value. Those are the soulmates, your ideal customers. So knowing who your customers are, where they are in terms of buying again from you, will allow you to A, understand which are the products that made them so buy again, B, what could happen, how to position yourself, how to communicate with them, because personalization is impactful only if it is relevant. So it doesn't matter that you know my name. What it matters is that you know my name and that I'm an ex-loyal customer and you are giving me the right treatment while I'm on your website or with your ads or with your email campaigns. And that's how you can leverage RFM to increase customer lifetime value, by being relevant to the customers according to where they are in terms of the customer journey.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So could you give us a few examples around how you could leverage that?
Sure, Jane. So one thing that you could do, for instance, is to onboard newly acquired customers that have a high potential better. So let's say you have two onboarding flows for the average new customers and for the high potential new customers. And you simply set it and forget it once it works better, right? So you optimize these flows differently. Another way that you can use this, once you see that the customers are getting into the danger zone, you trigger another email flow and ads remarketing flow, right? So let's say customers are about to dump you, right? They haven't bought in the last 3 months, let's say, and usually they are buying in every 3 weeks, let's say. That's the purchase cycle. So for them, you do these prevention campaigns, right? You have these prevention initiatives, and pretty much there are 6 types of customer value optimization initiatives. I talk extensively about this in my book and in the CVO Academy, which basically a serious program for anyone which wants to level up and do advanced things with their e-commerce.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think that too many online sellers, whether they be big businesses or small ones, it's often a one-size-fits-all approach. It's less segmented the way you're describing. And as you're pointing out, you miss a lot of opportunities that way. You're not really personalizing it to where that customer is with regard to your website or your products.
Exactly, yeah. And we are all in the business of influencing behavior at the end of the day. Unless you take into account the existing behavior, you can't influence it, right? So you need to first understand the behavior and then influence it.
Yeah, that's important too, to understand the behavior, what people are doing, why they're doing it. I think there's been somewhat of a myth around, let's say, retail, and that is that the customer is essentially, I don't want to use the word moron, but so to speak, and they don't, you can just tell them anything, put anything in front of them. They don't know what's going on. And I think that e-commerce, in a sense, has shown a light on that actually consumers are quite smart, and we need to understand that so that we can understand how to best position our products. We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
Yeah, it was that saying. I've just heard it the other day, Jane. The consumer is not stupid. It could be your wife.
Yeah, exactly. The quote from David Ogilvy. And it's something that people forget. I think that initially a lot of marketers just assumed that everybody out there didn't know what was going on. And it's been a rude awakening for many to find out that people are quite savvy. And, nowadays you can research anything online and people do.
Exactly. Yeah. And basically we are in this, we are living these moments in retail where unless you make the customers feel like you care about them, genuinely care about them, they have plenty of options. So they just switch to another tab or another app, and they have another merchant that they could be buying from.
Yes, exactly right. Now, you mentioned 4 types of CVOs or CVO campaigns. Yeah. What are they? How do they work?
Yeah. So first of all, the main CVO campaign is the acquisition, right? But if you acquire customers with the customer lifetime value in mind, then you know who are your best customers, what kind of products they are buying, why they are buying, what's making them buy over and over again. So basically, with the acquisition campaigns that have this customer value optimization DNA, let's say, you acquire the best customers with the right products by bidding more on the products that are going to bring you more sticky customers. Because if you analyze the customer lifetime value by the first bought SKU, then you will know that you can bid differently on products that might have the same average order value. So that's the acquisition campaigns. And of course, it takes into account first the customer research, knowing your customers, knowing your products, and then optimizing those for acquiring long-time customers. Then the second type of CVO campaign initiatives are the onboarding ones, where, okay, you have the customers, but how do you onboard them? How you make them extract most of the value from your products? Because many companies are forgetting that the customers are using those products to achieve some goals. They have some needs. They want to get to a desired outcome with your products. And if you instruct them well, let's say you are selling hand creams or you are selling cosmetics, train them on how to use those products according to what type of objective goal they have. So with this type of onboarding campaigns around the fact that, hey, get this cream after the shower, or use it 3 times a day, or make sure that you use it for 3 weeks in a row to see the effects. That's how you onboard the customers, because it's not about the product, it's about the process on which the customers are into. So that's the onboarding. And you can do this with package inserts, with instructions, with email, even with the ads that will train them on to how to leverage the product. Because let's make it clear, if someone is not using or consuming the product and is not happy, they are not going to buy again those products from you. So that's your thing. If you have a customer that bought only once a product, which is a fast-moving consumer product, then you have just a trial customer, and you paid a lot of acquisition costs to acquire a customer that will buy only once, so you will barely breaking even. Then the third type of the CVO initiatives are the prevention ones, right? So let's say, like I've said earlier, when the customers are getting into the danger zone, how you are articulating the fact that maybe they need to restock the product, maybe they need to see other features, other use cases of the product, maybe they should be seeing other customers that have succeeded with the product by using it long term. Let's say you are selling supplements or other type of products where you are starting, you are happy about the vitamin C or whatever, collagen or whatever, and don't use it as you need it in order to see the effects. And then the last but not the least are the reactivation campaigns, or the ones that are basically on the lost customers. And you have two types of lost customers. You have the ex-lovers, the ex-loyal customers, and you have the breakups, right? Or the Don Juans, the customers that bought only once and they are low value. So you can trigger this type of reactivation campaigns across all channels, even via SMS or email or ad campaigns. The problem with these campaigns is that they are not the most impactful ones, and they are not the most impactful because they have the lowest recency. Yeah. So basically, as I've said earlier, if the recency score is higher, so if someone has been buying recently, the chances for them to buy is even higher. The benefit of the reactivation campaigns, to say it so, is that you have a large amount of customers that never come back after they haven't come back in the last year or so. So basically, you have the volumes to justify doing this type of CVO initiative.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because so much of the focus is just simply driving top line, right? Driving volume, sort of volume for volume's sake. And it's interesting that you're pointing out that actually you end up doing better if you understand what customers you're attracting. And if you're attracting fewer people, but people who are spending more, buying products that deliver higher margins for you, you're actually going to end up with a better overall performance than if you're just saying, how many sales can I get, or how many dollars can I, sell in any given time, without any regard for what your costs may be associated with acquiring and whether the people come back. So, it's really good that you brought that up.
The balance between the lifetime value and customer acquisition cost is way underrated. I mean, most of the marketers are focusing on ROAS, which is a shallow and stupid metric, right. But few are focusing on CLV to CAC ratio, which shows you actually if you're profitable per any customer that you acquire.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. You can see that that's maybe talked about, but it's not really acted upon. Now, when you're looking at e-commerce and the various metrics that people could be looking at, what do you see are areas perhaps that people are still overlooking, or are there hidden opportunities? Are there areas where people are, you might say, leaving money on the table? What are you seeing around that?
I think Net Promoter Score, it's way underrated than it should be. And is not by the 2/3 of the top Fortune 500 companies in the US, but is neglected by mid-size or even smaller companies. And Net Promoter Score is great because it allows you to see what is the feedback of actual customers. And you can also break the NPS down if you have enough responses by various things. For instance, our technology allows companies to see the NPS by the RFM segment, by the location, NPS by the category of the products that you've sold. And knowing this and seeing the anomalies is the key. We even have companies which are looking at the NPS by the store. If they are having an omni-channel approach, they see that the NPS in Atlanta is way better than it's in let's say, in Los Angeles. So knowing this type of things allows you to focus where is the problem, right? Because you can investigate, you can drill down, and you can look at the feedback from those type of customers. And you can also do something which I love, which is real-time treatments for low NPS scores. So if you have detractors, instead of waiting for weeks or not doing anything, you take action. So we have this system of building flows. If you have a high value customer, a soulmate with a low NPS score, you trigger a ticket, and then the help desk and the people from the customer service are taking action. And that's how you show the customers that you care about them. And that's coming from the right data. Because if you see this, Jane, the same that I do, you have the vision as the company, you have the objectives, and then you have the data, and then you have the processes and the people. But the data gets you making those type of processes. If you don't measure the right things, the things that matter, you end up having this chaotic reporting and random acts of marketing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an interesting way you put it, random acts of marketing. Because you're right, it is oftentimes the way things are being done. And maybe it's just because there's just a lot going on around marketing a product in a complicated market. So people aren't quite sure what they should be focusing their attention on. So I think it's interesting that you brought some of these things up.
Right. Yeah. It's a matter of reaching this maturity, let's say. And my vision is that in the future, companies will become way more aware about what does it mean to have a customer-centric reporting rather than a old school financial P&L EBITDA driven reporting. And CFOs must become friends with the CMOs. They should, and the lifetime value is the bridge that connects them, because once you have the customer lifetime value and the customers at the core of your reporting, then you can't debate about anything, right? Marketing uses KPIs around the customers. Finance uses KPIs about the customers, and then they have the same language.
Right, exactly. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing at your company specifically.
Yeah, sure. So Omniconvert, it's a solution for e-commerce and retail companies. We have an A/B testing and website personalization solution. We've been started back in 2013. We help e-commerce and retailers to do website experimentation. And we also have another product, which is helping them to do automatically RFM segmentation and NPS tracking and monitoring all those things that matter for them. So basically, we are building solutions for omnichannel and retail companies to get clarity and internal alignment with the help of these KPIs. And also we help them to take action. So we don't have only the analytics part, but we also have the engagement part, right? Taking action towards your customers according to who they are. We also have an education component, the CVO Academy, which is helping them to understand what's going on. And we train agencies and leadership teams around how to become truly customer-centric.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And it's such a great resource for people who need to be able to get up to speed on a lot of things that are happening around e-commerce. Now, Valentin, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm a LinkedIn person. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also read the first chapter of my book, which is going to launch in 2 months, called The CLV Revolution. It's going to be released in June 2023.
Oh, congrats.
And basically, I'm here for you. So if you have any questions, I've been growing from an ex-poor kid back in Bucharest, Romania, and I've become a serial entrepreneur thanks to the curiosity and talking with smarter people than I am. So if you think that I can help you out, don't be a stranger. Just write me on LinkedIn. I'm always responding.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, I'm going to make sure that all of those links are in the show notes. And I want to thank you so much, Valentin, for taking the time to join us here on A Seat at the Table. I've learned a tremendous amount from you, and I think that everyone listening has too.
Thank you, Jane, and thanks everyone for listening to me, and good luck in your endeavors.
If you're interested in improving your e-commerce performance, then you might want to listen to How Top Brands Are Winning on Google Shopping Without Going Broke, where Liam Patterson, co-founder of Bidnamics, talks about strategies that the most successful brands are using to make better ad spend decisions. I'll leave a link in the show notes. You can also find it over on our podcast website, seat.fm, or in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any of the other podcast channels.